Hello, my name is Ralph and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on Barry's heads today, and we've got our valves all sunk down as far as we dare go with them, and it's looking pretty good. We figured out our shims for our valve stacks, and we feel like we're good to go. So today what we're going to have to do is to smooth out the edges around the valves themselves. Because they've been sunk down into the head quite a ways, it's ended up with like 90-degree sort of corners on the sides. And those have to be smoothed out, otherwise your airflow will become pretty erratic there. It'll want to go over the edges and curl and cause a lot of turbulence there instead of just flowing out. So it's a very important step on the end, and we know about it, so we're going to try and do something about it and show you what we're doing as we go along. All right, stick with us. Let's go. So this is what we have to deal with today, and because the valves have been sunk down in here, we're left with these very sharp edges here, kind of 90 degrees on both of our valves. And what we have to try and do is go all around and smooth those out. In different areas it becomes more prominent. You can see it here. There's quite a lot actually right there, right in this area here. And we have to be careful that we don't go up in here across this area because the valve seal's here, so we don't want to disturb this. We actually just want to cut down on an angle in here and try to take these rigid edges off without disturbing our valve seat in here, which is the trick. So we're going to work away at them and see what we can do, and we'll keep you tuned in as we go along to see how they come along. So what we're planning on doing here is putting our old valves into the heads, and that way we're hoping to help us stay away from the seat area. So we're just going to use our soft springs here. All right, that'll kind of keep things in place while we work away at them. So we're just going to change our little sanding disc to something a little more pointed to get down into one spot there. It seems like there's still a little bit of a ridge, and I'd like to try and get that out of there. So we're just going to take our time and go slow and work along till we get these edges nice and smooth as we want them there. So we'll try something else, another little pointed thing, just to take that little sharp ridge off, and then we'll go around and polish it up and see what happens. All right. No more ridges. Everything's polished down. Even if it appears to be a ridge there, there's nothing there. So we have no ridges left on anything. And we've only taken a minimal amount of stuff off. So after a little bit of work, a few hours of frigging around, we've got a nice chamber now with no 90-degree angle ridges on it. So our flow should be as good as it can be. Yes, we took a minimal amount of material off, but by smoothing out the edges, it sort of compensated for some of that. If I'd left it with the rough edges, the flow wouldn't be very good at all. So, that's one down. So now that we've got the valves out of them, you can see how they look in there. Nice and smooth all around. And there's the difference, as you can see. So we've got to work on this one now and see if we can get it down like the other one. but I feel pretty confident about it. It's just time. Again, as with many things, it's just time. Take your time, go slow, go slow. If you go fast, you can hog it out of there. If you make a mistake, you got a big problem, or you could ruin your own set of heads. So taking time is the way to go. So we're gonna go ahead and work on the other head and try to get that one done up. All right. Well, I'd say we got her now. This is the last head. And there's no more ridges or sharp areas in there. So, took the best part of a day, but we got her. Now we need to wash everything out and get it all cleaned out and start to assemble these heads and get them back on this motor and get them ready to go. So now they're all polished up, and just going to give the surfaces a wipe here when we're done. We're going to wash them all out and check the valve seating on them, but everything looks to be good. These ones are good to go. Today we're going to be working on our valve springs for this motor. I don't know what they are or where they came from. So I'm gearing up something so I can kind of check the tension on them and give me a rough idea of perhaps what the closing pressures are and stuff on them. I'm not quite sure how this is going to help me out, but I'm going to try it anyway. I have to machine up a couple parts to make things work the way I want. So we're going to go along and try a few things, and hopefully this will help tell me what these springs are, or even close to what they are, and if they're all the same or if they're fatigued. So stick with us, and we're going to try to figure out something today. If you enjoy the channel, do subscribe, like, and ring the bell to get notified about new videos coming out. We really appreciate it, and it helps our channel to grow. All right, so let's get at it. We're going to start out by trying to make a small pedestal for our springs to sit on, and something that I can put in there to hold them centered and interchanged for the different size of the inner springs. Well, I think what I'm going to do is drill a small hole in the center of it, and I can make individual sort of pallets that I can put up on it to center up the springs and keep them from wanting to walk around and get wonky on me. So we're going to drill it out at a tap drill size for 1/4 of an inch. Going to tap a little hole in this here, and hopefully then I'll be able to screw my little mandrel, so to speak, onto these for different size springs to hold them centered. So we've made our little plugs at different sizes here. Some of the smaller one there will be for, you know, straight size Evo ones and things like that. And this one here is more for the high performance springs. Doing it this way, I can always turn myself out a new piece to fit inside, and it will really help to keep the springs centered when I go to use the unit to test the pressure. There we go. So the first thing we got to figure out is what our installed spring height should be, how high that should be. And basically what we do is we take coil bind, which we're going to show you here, we add 60 thousandths of an inch to it, and then we add the lift to it, the total lift of the cam on the spec sheets, which would be 560 in our case. That will give us our installed spring height, so we'll know how much to shim it to do. Then I'm going to go along and also check and see at that height what kind of pounds per square inch we're getting on the pack to close the valve. So let's go ahead. So we'll crank this up till we get coil bind here. Just till it touches. You don't have to torque it in there really tight. And we're going to measure from collar to collar. 1.073 on that one. Just to double check it inside the collars. 1.073, yeah. And then let it off easily so it don't blow up in your face. And 1.077 on that one. So now we're going to take our solid height here on the first spring pack. It's 1.075 plus 0.06 plus, and the valve lift is 0.560 plus, so 1695. And we'll go along and do each one. All right, so that's where we're at. We can see we're pretty close here. 697, 697, 5 and 3, a couple thousandths of an inch. But for all intents and purposes, everything's running pretty close to the same. Now, having renewed our numbers and gone back and double checked our spring pack because we had a slight discrepancy, and upon doing them the second time, they're coming out pretty well even. So I would say that, you know, the solid heights is 1.077 plus 60 thou plus the lift, 1.697 is the installed spring height. So it seems to be that right across the board. So that just shows you, if you take a moment and double check your numbers, if you got anything in question, just take a minute and go over and do it again. Once we looked across the board, the numbers seem to be where they should be, and I'm happy with that. A 5-pound discrepancy was quite a bit, and turns out it was just the way it was mounted, and they look to be all right now. Now, according to my previous calculations, we've got our installed spring height that says at 1.97, so for all intents and purposes, we'd be 1.70, and would be 190 pounds at that installed height. So we're gonna check this with our spring tester, and it takes a little bit to get it exactly centered where we want. So setting it here at, our calculations say at 1.7, be 190 pounds. So I'm 60, 70, 80, almost 190, not quite. I think it's a 0 at 8, so 1.70 is going to give us, even though we're reading 1.80, but we have to take 100 thou off for the top collar that we have there to center them up. So I'm 190 pounds plus 60, 70, 80, just 190 pounds at 1.70. And 1.80. That's about 160 pounds. Yeah, 160, about 165 pounds at 1.80, and we need them a lot taller than that. So we got an idea where these springs are at, and we're pretty close there. Yeah, about 95 pounds at 1.860. So we can't use these springs. So if our calculations are right, but we'll definitely have to go to our new Bee Hive Springs, which are considerably taller. So I've gone through measuring some of the valve spring packs just to see where I'm at and get a round number The 1.07, 1.08 seems to be a common one, so we're talking, you know, a thousandth of an inch there I could have been out, which would have brought this up to like an installed spring height of 1.7. Now, according to my spring pressure tester, at 1.7, I've got 190 pounds. So at 1.8, it would have given me 165 pounds, which is probably in the ballpark there somewhere. But because we've had to sync the valves and such up in there, we've had to go to at least 1.860 and maybe 1.88, depending on how far the other one has to go up. That would have left us 95 to 100 pounds pressure maybe on these old springs. So you can see where we can't possibly use these springs, and we needed to go to a new beehive set, which are taller and give us more clearance. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with the new beehive springs, and depending on where we have them sunk down in there, whether we go to the 1.860 or the 1.880. A 1.880 will still give us 172 pounds, which is very acceptable range for that. And we may be able to stack a shim up a little bit more either way. So, you know, the 1.8 springs, 860 gives 178 pounds. So we're from 178 to 172 pounds closing pressure, which is not a whole lot of difference. And unless you were running up to 7,000 RPM, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference in the grand scope of things. So we'll be in the ballpark there. And as you can see by looking at them, there's a difference in the height by quite a bit. And that little bit with the different collars will allow us the distance we need to set these heads up properly, I hope. All right. Just a little tidbit, but interesting stuff. So that's where we're at. That's what we're going to work on, and we're going to move ahead on that. And that shows you a little bit about valve spring and coil bind and how to measure your valves. Anyone can do it. It certainly gives you a good idea. Having the spring pressure gauge certainly helps out. But I have a few of these tools that I've acquired, so it makes my life a whole lot easier when it comes to figuring out those sort of things.